Hi everybody, welcome back. It's Miss Sierra. So today, for your arts and crafts lesson, we're going to be learning about pop art and also making it. Now, what's pop art, you might be thinking? Well, pop art is my absolute favorite art to make. It is an art based on pop culture, media, comic books, things like that. Here's an example of pop art. These are both paintings, and they both fall into the category of pop art. Both of these are paintings I made myself. So you might notice that they look kind of like comic books or cartoony. That's the whole point of pop art. Now, one really famous person that created pop art was named Roy Lichtenstein. He was a really famous pop artist. Now, what pop artists were trying to do is they were trying to change the way that people thought about art. Many people thought that art should be really complicated and fancy and follow certain rules. But this is not what pop artists believe. He thought that people should connect with art and enjoy it and enjoy making it. Pop artists wanted to make art that every person could recognize instantly and engage with it. So something that everybody knew, like Campbell's soup cans or comic books, for example. This is actually one of his paintings that he made, Roy Lichtenstein's paintings. He made this. Now, obviously, you probably recognize the two characters that he painted, Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. He got one of these ideas from a comic strip because a while ago, Mickey Mouse was actually in comic books. So he painted this picture here from a comic book. He also used the comics or even everyday things to create comic book looking artwork. So he used everyday things, like I said. As you can see right here, these are just a pair of shoes or probably his breakfast for the day. And he created these really cool pieces just based off things that he saw every day and made them look like really cool pictures that you would see in a comic book. Now, just like cartoon strips, he also used little teeny dots in all of his paintings, really bold colors, outlines, and patterns to create some of his artwork. He also did a lot of close-up portraits. Now, these are some examples of close-up portraits, and again, they are comic book-like. He did a lot of pieces about things that were happening at the time, like war, history pieces. He did a lot of things like that. Just like in comic books, he made a lot of words look like that they were doing what they were saying. So you see the word kapow. That is a word that sounds like what it's doing, right? So kaboom, bang, pow, wham. Now there's a name for all of these words that sound like the action that they're doing. And it's called onomatopoeia. I'll say that one more time because it's a really big word. It's called an onomatopoeia. Some of you might have already learned this in school, but an onomatopoeia is the naming of an action or sound that it sounds like the word. Okay, so zoosh. It sounds like what is happening. Or buzz, hiss. They all are words that sound like what is happening. So the use of words which the sounds suggest the meaning of the word, right? Crack, splat. They all kind of, the sound of them suggest what is happening or what that word means. So, what you're going to be doing today is creating some of that pop art. We're going to be making what Roy Lichtenstein did, and he used comic books and made pop art of words that were automatopoeias. We're going to be doing that today. This is pop art and super fun and cool. This is exactly what we're going to do. Roy Lichtenstein, this is a big hint for the question of the day. Keep this in mind. Only used primary colors, which are red, yellow, and blue. And back in the day, that's primarily what most comic books used too. Red, yellow, and blue. So those are the colors that we're going to be using today based off of the colors and techniques that a really famous pop artist used, like Roy Lichtenstein did, right? So we're going to combine everything that we learned today and make a really cool piece of pop art. Again, this is an example of what yours is going to look like at the end. A really cool piece of artwork. And it's really simple to do too. So here are the materials that you're going to need to grab, and I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to do so. Now get your scissors, and we're gonna carefully cut out all of our letters. Now, if you have a letter or you're making letters that have little things in the middle, like an O, a P, an A, whatever, right? This is what you're gonna do. You're gonna very lightly take a pencil and poke a little hole in the center like this. Just enough to where the tip of your scissor can get through. You're gonna cut one line at the top, a line both sides, and then one at the bottom, almost like a letter T right here. Doing this will allow you to fully get your scissors in the center and be able to cut all the way around. That way your letter is fully cut out. Okay, now that we have all of our letters cut out, I actually decided too halfway through that I didn't really want to do the letter pop. I wanted to do POW instead, like a comic book. So I just erased it before I cut out my last letter and drew the letter W. Any word will work just fine as long as it is an onomatopoeia word, or a word that would be used in a comic book. Now that we cut out all of our letters for our word, we're going to cut clouds, bursts, lightning bolts, or other shapes for you to choose that would kind of relate to your word, right? So if your word is zap, you might want to cut out some lightning bolts. If your word is boom, you might want to cut out some clouds. Just anything that's gonna relate to whatever the word is that you chose. But you should have a bunch of different shapes, okay? So you're going to have some small shapes, some large shapes, and a few similar shapes of various sizes to layer on top of each other. Now what this does, the layering of these words and shapes and things, it creates texture in a piece. Now what is texture and laying have to do with anything? Well, what it does is it makes your piece of artwork more interesting to look at. It gives your piece movement. So what I mean by that is it makes your eyes, when you look at a piece, look at the entire piece of artwork, not just one corner or one spot that they might find interesting. You're going to look at the whole thing, and just overall it looks a lot nicer. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, because I picked the word POW, I'm going to cut out some zigzag shapes and stars. And with the magic of TV, I'm gonna come right back and all my shapes are gonna be cut out. Okay, so here are my stars. You can see that I cut one big one, one small one out of the construction paper. And I also cut out some pretty cool jagged shapes here too. And I also made sure to cut out another little tiny star with my red construction paper as well. Now what you're gonna do is we are going to make shapes out of our newspaper as well. So make some of the same shapes that you just made. So I just made a star and a little zigzag, okay? I'm gonna just make some of the same ones out of my newspaper. And we're going to pick a side of our newspaper that we were given with a bunch of words on them to make it more interesting. That's the whole point, is make it really cool and fun to look at. And we're gonna take my star, I'm gonna trace over it right here and cut it out. Another thing to note real quick, whenever you're tracing on the newspaper, make sure that you're using a colored pencil or a marker or a crayon, something that writes well, not a pencil, because it won't show up too good. So another thing you want to do real quick is maybe just grab a pack of your markers, because you're going to need them later too. Okay, now I have all of my pieces that I'm going to need cut out, as you should too. Now you're going to figure out how to place and arrange them. One important note, as I already stated, so you should know this, but we are going to layer our pieces. So I'll show you an example of what layering means. So you should have cut out two of the same shapes, and this is what we're going to do with them. See, now that right there is what I mean by layering. Okay, now I've glued all of my pieces that I want to use in my pop art piece down to the paper, and we are almost finished. I am going to go back and fix some small details and outline my drawing here, but before I do that, here's a checklist that you all need to ask yourselves too. Have you used the whole space of your paper? Have you layered shapes to create depth? And do you have enough texture? Meaning what we're using, texture, is our newspaper. So text is enough text showing. That's your checklist, and if you have yes for all of those things, then you're ready to move on and draw all your details on. Okay everybody, so I hope you enjoyed today's arts and craft project. Leave the answer to the question of the day down in the comments below. Question of the day is what colors did Roy Lichtenstein use in his art pieces? Alright, leave that in the comments down below, along with your name. Bye everybody, see you next time.